Hello, denizens of the internet. I'm Elysium, and I'm here today to talk about climate change and people's inability to really forward plan effectively. Humans are notoriously bad at forward planning. We choose proximal rewards over delayed gratification. What does that mean? It means we overly value immediate concerns as opposed to future concerns. It's one of the reasons that our justice system is said to be kind of crap, is that people will choose to rob a store now and not equally fear the chance of going to jail for several years in the future, because we value the couple of $100s you could get from robbing a store as opposed to the chance that you'll go to jail for several years. In one experiment they had a load of toddlers and they gave them the opportunity between a marshmallow now and 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes. And they found in the future that the toddlers who went for the 15-minute delay for the marshmallows actually scored better on SAT tests and had a healthier BMI, because valuing future rewards that are better than current rewards tends to pay off in the long run. It's also the reason that we might choose to order pizza now rather than waiting for 2 for Tuesday when you can get an extra pizza for free. Pizza. So we're shown the ability to choose delayed gratification is beneficial to humans, but we're still extremely bad at it. This might have something to do with how human brains process the two different options. Future options are weighed by the frontal parietal cortex, whereas immediate responses are weighed by our paralimbic system in the midbrain. And that's also the part of our brain that controls addiction and dopamine flow. So we in effect are addicted to immediate gratification. Which brings me on to climate change, and you'll see where the link comes in a minute. So ignoring all the evidence for climate change and reducing it to a simple logic diagram, and let's weigh the options. So on one side of our logic table, let's put the possibilities that climate change is true and that climate change is false. So in one circumstance, true, climate change exists, and all the bad things could happen, and the other one is false, and nothing happens. We can't change that. So the one we can change is what we do about it. So let's take, the action we're going to take about climate change. So let's take the two possibilities. We either act on it, or we don't act on it. So let's write down what happens if we act on climate change. So action and inaction. Let's take the simple one first. So what happens in the case of inaction? So inaction and climate change is true. Okay, and let's take fairly extreme responses in all regards on this, rather than just trying to find an average. Let's just take the all-rounder approach. So in the case of climate change is true, and we do nothing. Well, death, like a lot of people would die, the human race wouldn't really exist as we knew it today. Depending on how far it goes, quite possibly destroy our entire species in a matter of, quite a while. But in a few decades, we could definitely change how the world works economically, politically, culturally, sociologically, geographically. So that'll be death and also a lot of money. So I'm going to represent money here by $5 or 5x dollars. Just multiply $5 by whatever amount. Okay? So we'll call it $5 just for simplicity's sake, or $5x. So 5x. And in the case of inaction, but if climate change doesn't happen, and, is false, we have, well, we did nothing and nothing happened. So, bugger all. So, literally nothing happened for that one. And now in the case of we take action and climate change does happen, but we managed to, prevent it because we took action. So, what happens? Well, it costs us money. Not as much money as, the crippling of the economy that would happen if, we flooded Holland and turned parts of America and Europe into deserts, and Britain became covered in another ice age like Siberia. Not quite to that extent, so it's not going to be $5x. Let's call it $2x, which probably still fairly high considering the comparison, but let's just take an extreme action. So it costs us a lot of money to try and stop climate change, but we do it anyway. So in this, we put $2x. Okay? Fairly simple. And now let's take what happens if we do action, it turns out to be false. So in this case, let's assume we actually spend less money than if we did in the case of we actually acting, because presumably at some stage when we're trying to prevent climate change, we then go, oh wait, climate change doesn't exist, let's stop our action. Because at some point, you know, you would realize that. So instead of saying the same amount of action, we'll say we only put half the action in. So we'll say just X dollars, so 1x, X dollars. Okay, so here we have our logic table for inaction, action, true, false. Now, when comparing which decision to make, we can't compare them based on true or false because these are independent of us. We can't change these. These are external. What we can control is our actions. So let's compare action versus inaction. So let's get rid of this. And write action versus inaction. Okay? Simple enough. So, right, in the case of action, it was going to cost us $2x. Or X dollars. So we can simplify that and call it free X dollars. Okay? In the case of inaction, it was going to cost us death plus $5x and nothing. Because in the case of climate change not happening and us doing nothing, nothing happens. Okay? So let's simplify this. We have $3x versus death and $5x. So just simplifying that down, in the case of action, we lose 0 versus death and $2x. So as you can see, inaction is a far worse outcome for us as a species. And this assumes that we weigh each possibility equally, despite the evidence and the vast majority of specialists in the field who are much better qualified in this area than you or me. And on that note, I'll end this video here. I've been Elysium, and don't forget to stay extra shiny.